Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please put your hands together for the one, the only Dying Planet, The Prison of the Survivors, narrated by Tristan Kumar. Part 12, The Bug. I sat up in my bed. My sheets were undone and my legs were splayed out. I sat up and rubbed my eyes. I looked at my clock and it said 11:40 a.m. I still had some time before Sylvie showed up, though. I rolled out of bed and onto the ground. I stood up tired and yawned. I went to the bathroom and then changed into some black pants and a red t-shirt and my favorite black jacket. I went outside my room and went downstairs and outside onto the street. I lazily crossed it and went to the coffee shop next door. I ordered 2 regular coffees and started to head back. On the way back, when I was inside, the concierge of the hotel stopped me. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Rai?" she asked. "Yup, that's me," I said, tired. "Well, sir, you have a message," she said as she pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. I grabbed the envelope and looked at it. In nice handwriting, it said, "To Rai." "Thanks," I said as I headed to the elevator. The elevator started to move, and once I arrived at my room, it was 11:50 a.m. I set one of the coffee cups down and drank the other while still looking at the envelope. I rested against the wall and set my cup down. I opened the envelope and pulled out a letter. It said, "Hello, Rai. Please respond to this letter immediately with your response. This is a classified request from the President of the United States of America, President Matthew. He asked you to show him some of your work. He also asks if you could arrive in Washington, D.C. tomorrow night. There is a new era of technology with your intellectual genius, and the government may need it. Let us know. Vice President James." I looked at the letter and winced. I set the envelope down and grabbed a pen and wrote, "Dear President Matthew and Vice President James, sadly, I cannot come to Washington, D.C. tomorrow because I am currently in a partnership with another scientist known as Miss Sylvie. I am so sorry that I could not make it, but if you do truly want to meet me, you could come to the Las Vegas Four Seasons Hotel in room 101, or you could rearrange a time next month. Sorry for the inconvenience. Hopefully, see you soon. Rai." I finished writing the letter and hoped that they wouldn't be too mad at me for denying their request. I put it back in the envelope and put it aside. I grabbed my coffee and took a sip. I heard a knock at the door, and I set my cup down in a hurry. I walked to the door and pulled it open. "Rai, are you okay?" Sylvie said as I fell to the ground. "Yeah," I said as I took my hand off the broken glass. I walked to the table and found some more dusty blueprints with coffee stains on top of it. I shoved it off and put my head down. Sylvie sat down and touched my hand. "Hey, are you okay?" she said calmly. "Because if you aren't, you can just tell me." "No, nothing's wrong. I'm just tired," I said. I looked out at the window. It was sunset. "Hey," a distant voice said. We both stood up and looked out the window. It was General Rogers. "Let's head back. It's getting dark," he said. I gave him a thumbs up. "Don't tell this to him. Don't tell him what happened," I said to Sylvie. She nodded. She must have understood that there was something I wasn't telling her. I knew she would figure it out eventually. I hope. We headed back into the elevator and arrived back on the grounds. "There y'all are," he said as he finished his second beer. He emptied the bottle and threw it behind him where it smashed into pieces. "Let's go." We all started to head back to the pod, but I looked back at the building where we came from. I looked down the street and saw a building at the end that seemed to be the only one that was destroyed. "Come on, Rai," Sylvie said. I followed them back to the pod, and once all inside, the pod door slammed down, and we launched off the grounds back into space. It was Sylvie. I smiled. "Please, come in. I got some coffee for you if you want it," I said as I ushered her in. She set her coat down and looked around. The bed sheets were undone, there was a small crack in the glass of the window, and my clothes from last night were still all over the place. "Well, it looks like you've been living in the nicest place," she said as she sat down. I grabbed my computer and my coffee and sat down at the table as well. "Oh, it's not that easy being the smartest kid in the world," I laughed. She did too. "I understand." She grabbed her coffee and sipped it. "Wow, man, it looks like you just woke up," she said as I rubbed my eyes and drank my coffee desperately. "I did, actually. Kind of weird," I said. She nodded. I opened my computer and typed in my password. I opened my coding program and typed some easy code to boot up the program. I sat back as it did its magic. "I got your email, and I'm really glad that you're staying with me," she said. Well, this is an opportunity of a lifetime that a lot of scientists dream of, meeting meeting someone like you, I said. Yeah, I guess people do think I'm that great, she said. Well, I can see why. You've made so many helpful inventions in the past year. Well, I don't think it's that much. Meanwhile, your inventions, oof, where to begin? I mean, like, you're so famous. I kind of admire you more than myself, she said. Ah, come on, I said, shy and happy that she mentioned me. No, actually, she smiled. You made the world's first robotic arm that can neurally connect to the brain flawlessly. Nobody has ever done that before. You also wrote the book called In My Mind, personally one of the greatest books I've ever read, and also an inspiration for my experiments. Everybody read it, and you were and still are known as the most famous teenager since that time, she explained. I laughed and nodded. I'm not the best. I mean, there are better people out there than me. I stopped talking when I looked at my computer. It was beeping. Shoot, I said. I quickly pulled my computer in front of me. Sylvie stood up and looked at my computer screen. I pulled up the coding program, and the letters were red in some spots. I quickly typed in enter underscore program underscore invis, and my screen flashed red, and then I was in the program. There was a sunset in the background. There were little small temples along the plain, but I wasn't worried about that. I started to move my position around. What is this? Sylvie asked me. It's the Life program, a place where the testers go after they finish the testing process, I said, and she nodded. I moved my position to a cherry blossom tree. I waited, and Sylvia and I watched two people talk. Then one started to glitch out, and it started to turn into a red monster. It was the monster. What is that? She said. Well, I made this, and I based it off parts of my memory. But while making it, a bug glitched in, and it's been scouring everywhere. All I have to do is delete it, I said as the person fully transformed into the monster. I clicked on it and glitch code appeared on the side. I started smashing numbers and letters into it, and the red code started to turn green once more. Once there was one left, I typed in terminate underscore subject and pressed enter. The thing started to melt away, and I sighed in relief. Then the map began to glitch. I clicked on it and desperately typed in more words. Eventually, the map started to melt away while the words on my screen read, restarting, restarting, restarting. I took a sip, and the program was deleted. I sighed. On the screen were the blinking white words, program terminated. I clicked on it, and it was reset with everybody except the monster and the other person. Close call, I said to myself as I finished my coffee and closed my computer. Sylvie sat back down. So, what was the idea that you told me you had yesterday? Sylvie asked, and she took a sip. Oh, I said. The idea I had was originally with Rodrigo, but now it looked like he wouldn't be giving it to me. We probably have to think of something else. My source of materials retired, so we can't do that anymore. All right, then we'll think of something else. It's fine, Sylvie said. I went on to Google, but then I saw something. I clicked on a news image at the bottom, and it showed Sylvie's face and mine. The title said, Two Teenage Scientists. Great choice or terrible idea? I pulled the computer over to Sylvie, and the article said, Recently, the well-renowned famous teenage scientists Rai and Sylvie have created a partnership, apparently. Many people are wondering what will come out of this partnership. We asked our readers, and almost 90% said that it would be a non-beneficial relationship, and that the two mad scientists would just cause chaos and destruction, and nothing would change, because they're just kids. I mean, come on, they don't know how to rule the world. There seem to be a lot of controversies, especially since Rai has just denied a partnership with the President of the United States. Sylvie has also been requested to help the President, but she has also denied it. There are many people upset with Rai and Sylvie, calling them freaks. What will these mad scientists do next? The next part was another article. I looked at Sylvie. She was almost in tears. They think we're freaks, she said. I patted her shoulder and she cried. Mad scientists, eh? I thought, getting angry. I looked at Sylvie. She had stopped crying. She stood up. I have to go, she said. I'll be back in an hour or so. Wait, I started to say, but she was gone. The door closed and I stared at the article. Freaks. Mad scientists. The words echoed in my head. I grabbed my cup and threw it against the wall in rage. I stood up, slammed my fist on the table, and yelled. I grabbed my jacket and went outside the hotel. I walked around the streets of Las Vegas, pondering whether I should stay or go. Sylvie had just left out of the blue and I was terribly upset. I went to a casino instead for something. I walked in the front door, and many people eyed me. I was 6 years out of my age to be 21, but I continued through. They knew me. I walked to the back of the room and went up the stairs. I went to the top floor, and there was a nice little glass floor restaurant. A man was looking out the window. He pulled a cigarette out of his mouth and held it in his finger. He turned to look at me. He had a black robotic arm, the one that I had created. "What can I do for you, sir?" his gruff voice said. "Have you seen the news?" I asked. He took another breath through the cigarette and looked at me. "Well, the internet calls you and your little scientific girlfriend freaks and mad scientists. Must be insulting," he said. I nodded. "Yeah, it is, especially for Sylvie." "Anyway, I have something for you to do," I said. I reached around into my pockets and looked around, looking for eavesdroppers. There were none, so I continued. "Find the men responsible for the article and bring them here. 500 after it's done." 750, he bargained. 625, I suggested. He thought about it, and after another smoky puff, he nodded. 625. Come back in 3 days, he said. I nodded and headed back out. I walked down the stairs and outside the building. I sighed and looked back up at the tall building, then headed off. I walked around a little bit more. I went to a sandwich place and grabbed one. I started to eat it as I headed back to my hotel. It had only been 20 minutes since Sylvie left, though it felt like so long without her. I went back inside the hotel and went back to my room. Instead, I looked at the elevator buttons. I thought to myself for a minute, and then clicked 30 instead of 10. After a long ride, I arrived at the 30th floor. I walked out and went to the room 303. I knocked on the door. The door creaked open and a voice said, "Who is it?" "Rai," I said. They closed the door and opened it fully. I walked inside and they shut the door quickly. I sat down on their couch. All the lights in the room were red, and my eyes had a hard time adjusting to the lights. "What do you want?" they said as they walked around me. "I just want you to show me what you said you would," I said. They nodded, and they left the room. I turned on the TV in front of me and it showed my face. A reporter on the TV was talking about our controversy. I turned it off, annoyed, and the person came back. They handed me a paper. I peeked at it and nodded. I pulled some money out of my pockets and handed it to them. "Pleasure doing business with you," they said as they led me out. "Trust me, I don't want to do this," I said. "We'll see," they said as they closed the door. I went down the elevator and went to my room. When I opened the door, I realized it was already unlocked. I stepped inside and found Sylvie on my couch. On the table, there was a cube. She sat up and practically pranced over to me. She stopped in front of me. "Welcome back, Rai," she said joyfully. I smiled. "What happened to sad Sylvie?" I said as I closed the door and sat down on the couch. "Well, not sure, but I do know that our partnership is about to change," she said. We both looked at the box. "Well, what is it?" I asked. "Well, since everyone outside of us thinks that we're freaks, I think that it's time to show them what we can do," she said. "Well, now I'm interested." "Continue," I said. "I went to an old friend of mine when I left. His name was Oscar," she started. I stood up suddenly. "What? Was it something I said?" she asked. "No, it's that name. It's so familiar." I thought, but forgot it and sat back down. "I'm sorry, continue." "Well, Oscar gave me this thing, and he said that you can make anything from it," she said as she picked up the box and pulled off the wrapping. She had set down the red energy cube. I had a flash to a school from a different life, not mine. "This," she said as she smiled, "is our future." This episode was recorded by Tristan Kumar. If you enjoyed this, make sure to check out the next part. Thank you for listening.